In this video we're going to learn how to make a web page and then how to specify two parameters so that records can be retrieved from a database. Alright, so crank up Microsoft Visual Studio Express 2013 for web. Once you have it available, what you want to do is make sure you have SQL Server Object Explorer visible. If you don't, go to View and then just select it here. Once we have that expanded, you have to enlarge this if it's a long name, then expand our server here, and then drill down to databases, MyDBase, or whatever you happen to call yours. Alright, and then tables. Now we're going to add a new table, so right click, and then add new table. There it is. Now take a look. This is why I like Visual Studio, because it gives you like what's known as TSQL. That's the Transact SQL. Microsoft version of SQL specifically is called Transact SQL. And this is database creation code. It says create table. The name of the table is table. ID. The data type is integer, not null means a value has to be entered, and primary key, meaning this will be used to identify each record. And you see this is so because there's a little key right next to it as a property of that field. Alright, of that column. So let's make a new one called say name. Okay, give it a variable character. Let's make sure it's not null. And you see, as you make changes within the graphical designer, the code in the pane below is updated. So I have a name, variable character 50, and it's not null. So this is our database creation code. It's relatively simple, speaks for itself. Okay. So next, say we have something like some kind of salary here. Specify the data type, say money. Make sure it's not null. So now we have salary. Data type is money, and then it's not null. There you go. Now remember the purpose of a data type. A data type is necessary because there are many different kinds of objects in the world, and each kind of object might be represented using a different data type, like money to represent salaries, and a name might be represented with a variable character, and if something has to be positive, an increase in value, and so on, you might be presented using an integer like 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay? You probably don't want to have a record whose ID is 25.5958. Okay? So hit update. And it says update. There you go. If you want, it's you can update the database. You can generate the script. We'll just hit update. And now take a look. You see just now a new little table has appeared here. Go back into Management Studio. And this is the old query from the previous video. Click Tables and click Refresh. And notice that has also appeared. So there, whether you're using the Studio here or using Visual Express Studio, it will show you both in both of them. So it's very helpful and reassuring too that it's visible in both. Alright, now expand the table here, and now what you want to do is view data. So right click and choose view data. I can put some values in here like 1 and say here Mary and 150,000. Okay, 2 and John and say 250,000, and 3 and I don't know, Mickey, and say it's 120,000 like that. Okay, there you go. So make sure this all takes effect, right? So if you refresh it, you always save everything. You can click it off. Now here it says you can add a new row if you like. You can sort and filter data set. If you click that, you see. And look, it says select top 1000 ID name salary from the table. Okay. Yeah. So, and if you want, you can script this to a file and script. If you script here, see this is the code that runs. This is the data insertion code. Okay, and we'll talk about all of this in much more detail. Just be aware of it that there's stuff happening behind the scenes, and ultimately this is SQL that is generating all of this for us, and not just some graphical user interface with no SQL behind it to power it. And let's click that off. Okay, but obviously it's more convenient this way. Make sure it's saved. There we go. Now choose Solution Explorer. You can click this off now, like that. Even click that off. Make a new website. Use ASP.NET empty website. Leave the settings below as they are. Click OK. Right click, and then choose Add. In a new web form, click Default and leave OK. Rather, click OK and leave the name as default. Let it generate all of the files. There you go. So, cool. So what we're going to do is this. Switch to design view. Not that it's strictly necessary, but it's a way of doing it. So this is the design view here. So the thing first we are going to do is grab a grid view and place it over here. There you go. And next we are going to do this. We're going to say enter name and expand standard. And again, if you don't see the toolbox, go to view and toolbox. Next to it, we're going to put a text box. So drag and drop a text box in here. Okay, so now we also put in enter salary, like that. Next to it, place a text box, like that. And under all of this, if you want, you can go to source view now. And this is the code that is generating. In HTML, if you want a horizontal line, you can type hr/. It's going to give you a horizontal line. And it's a nice way of separating content. And we can do it for all of them like this, you see. There you go. So if you go to a design view, see now you have horizontal lines separating content, so it's more clear. Cool. Now, at this point, we are going to take a button from here, drag and drop it into the space. So there's our button. Let's go back to design view. Now we also need to add a database connection. We can do this in a couple ways. Or you can just click the grid view, choose a smart tag, choose this, new data source, SQL database, click OK, click new connection. Okay, specify the name of the server, so Tom's PC in my case / Tom's SQL server. Expand the drop-down down below, choose my DBase, test the connection. Beautiful, click OK. Click next, click next. Alright, and notice that here it automatically chose table. Alright, so say you want just a name salary like this. And where, for example, for now, okay, say the name is and here let's go with none for now, okay? Say Mary like that. Add that. And some other condition, for example, the salary is and say again none. Let's say it's 120,000, something along those lines. Okay, add it. Click OK. Alright, then if you want to order by, then you can click here, choose a salary and descending order, and all the queries generated. Now remember this at name and at salary, those are parameters. Values will be passed through those into our program. Click OK, click next, test a query. So when you test a query, it asks you this, that's okay. But remember that we specified the salary as money, but here it's interpreted as a decimal. Okay? We specified the name as a variable character. Here it's interpreted as a string, so keep the object, the data type mappings in mind. Okay. In our case, nothing happens to match that criteria. That's okay. Click finish. Enable sorting, so it underlines the fields. Click auto format. Choose say rainy day or sand and sky. I like snowy pine. Click OK. So it looks like this. Now build this. Alright, so we have a connection. If you go to source view and you scroll up, let's take a look at the code that's been generated so far. So we have our grid view, which is connected to the data source. And we have our select command, which is select salary name from table where name equals at name and salary equals at salary, ordered by salary in descending order. So remember, name and salary with the ats are our parameters. Those will be used, to basically read values into the program. And if you look at the parameter list down below, it says ASP colon parameter, default value Mary, name is name, and type is string. And the same thing with this one here, see? So name, salary, type decimal. There you go. So these are our parameters. Alright, so that's good. Now we need to make a connection to our little text boxes. So I'll show you a way of doing it. I never say that it's the way, but it's a way. People have thought of all kinds of ways to do all kinds of things. So let's go to design. And this is what you can do. I want you to double click the button. When you double click the button, it brings up what's known as a Microsoft C# code behind file. Here, this is hard code. This is the logic aspect of all of this. We have the presentation level, which is what you see. You have the database level, which is the database. And this here is the glue between the two, so to speak. So the question is, how do we now read values from the text box and use them to control the appearance of the grid view or the information that it displays? So what you can do is type SQL data source 1, and notice this is again IntelliSense. It helps you to display information, so you can choose that easily, see? And then hit a period, and you see these little wrenches, okay? And it says this is useful. Now you start typing, you see? So choose the one that says select parameters, and you know there's a little wrench. That means this is a property, something that a select an SQL data source contains. Okay, it has a member, or it's defined by this object called select parameters. There you go. So think of it this way: you as a person, you have a hair color, you have an eye color, you have a height, you have a weight. Those are properties that define you as the person that you are, as you appear to at least be, right? Then there you have your behaviors and all of that. Those are the things that define you as a person. Well, a data source is the same thing. It's an object and it's got properties. The values of those properties can be assigned. So one of them is the select parameters, and then you're going to do this, and then put the quotes in, and then you're going to type money earned. So what we are doing, and then dot, and then default value, and set that equal to text box 1.text, like this. What this will do is when you click the button, it will read the value from the text box into the query, and that will be used to process the query and access the database and retrieve records. Right, let's repeat it for the other ones. So SQL data source 1, and then dot select parameters, and then here type I believe title it was, and then let me just double check this. So if you don't remember what these are, do this: go to default.aspx, go to source view, and look at the, so we have name and salary. Okay, so let me keep that in mind, name and salary. So net money earned. Let's change this to salary and name. Okay, and then dot and default value, and set that equal to text box 2.text. Okay, now make sure everything is logically consistent. So if you go to default.aspx and design view, then enter name is actually the first text box, enter salary is the second one. So always keep that in mind. This is all really easy to fix. That's the cool thing, just so you're aware of that. Like that. Right, this establishes the connection that we need between the text boxes in the database and the query. Let's build this code. Alright, so the code has been built, so it looks like this. Simple enough. Alright, so at this point, believe it or not, switch to Designer and hit Google Chrome. Let it validate all the input and everything else. Now remember here, when you load the page, it gives you the local host, that means your local computer, and there's a logical software port 56708, and the name of the page default.aspx. In general, Microsoft.NET pages or the web forms have an extension of .aspx. Your active server pages. And at first, all you see are two boxes, okay? Because the default values we specified in the query don't match anything in the records. Okay, so now, if we do this, expand this window, so this for 1 second. Alright, so there it is. Now, again, take a look at this. What we're going to do is get some values about which we are absolutely certain, just to confirm that this works as expected. So right click here and then choose View Data. So we see we have a Mary, and she's got a salary of 150. Okay, so we'll run this again. We can even just reload it. There you go, so you can run it again, or you can reload it. Enter a name, so Mary, and her salary was 150. And you hit the button over here, and it displays her, and it displays it in the grid view. You see? There you go. And notice this is still underlined, so it's still working nicely. And obviously, you could search for, like, maybe have 5 Marys, and there's a range of salaries. You want all of the Marys who make $150,000 or more. All kinds of things are possible. So I've shown you just something relatively simple, but nevertheless it's still interactive. And notice that when you hit this button here, that little icon spins. What this is telling you is that this is retrieving a fresh copy of the page from the server. Alright, let's minimize this, close that. There you go. Now all of the code is available for you. And remember, this is a 2-parameter query. So go to source view. And the 2 parameters are name and salary, and we are passing them through those into the query, which is then used to access the database so that we can retrieve results to be displayed back in the page. And I've included a schematic in the sidebar that illustrates this process a little more vividly still. And the code is also included in the sidebar, so you can read through it. And just keep in mind, a lot of this code is auto-generated, so that it's fairly quick, convenient, and efficient. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in another video.